Hello, my friends. It's Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, and I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, your Red State refugee, and welcome to the Radical Russ Show, coming to you from Rolla J Studios in my undisclosed mountain hideaway in the beautiful state of Jefferson region of Southern Oregon. We've got a fantastic show for you today. Of course, the story that's blowing up all over the news is our Secretary of Defense, the DUI hire, Pete Hegseth, and the rest of our national security apparatus, including an Atlantic reporter, on a signal chat concerning top secret war plans against the Houthis in Yemen. We'll give you all the details and some audio when we get to that in our first segment. In our second segment, we'll talk about Europe and how they are responding to the tangerine toddler in the White House and pulling out of our defense contracts, boycotting our products. And now the newest news is how they are going to be pulling out of cloud services like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. We got a story from overseas in Israel where Israeli settlers in the West Bank have attacked and the Israeli Defense Forces disappeared the director of the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land that details Israeli attempts to sack his hometown in the West Bank and drive out the Palestinians. We've got our regular Boycott Idaho segment where we take a look at a controversial bill that has survived a court challenge that affects school libraries. And then finally, to round out the program, our radical rant at the end of the show, Democrats versus populism. Why can't Democrats get around the idea of supporting who the people are excited about? And with that in mind, I want to open the show today about a Democrat I'm excited about. I just found out about this person this morning. I don't spend a lot of time online watching streamers or Gen Z or anything like that. So she's new to me. Maybe she's someone that you've already heard of. Her name is Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, and she's a journalist and YouTube influencer. She's just announced that she is running for Congress for Illinois' 9th District. Now, that's a district that includes the north part of Chicago and some of the suburbs. And she is challenging a Democratic incumbent named Jan Schakowsky. Jan Schakowsky is 81 years old and has been representing this district since the 1900s. Literally has held this seat since 1999. Here's a little from Kat Abu-Ghazaleh's video announcing her run.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk are dismantling our country piece by piece. And so many Democrats seem content to just sit back and let them. So I say it's time to drop the excuses and grow a fucking spine. I'm Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, and I'm running for Congress in Illinois' 9th District. Unfortunately, this party has become one where you have to look to the exceptions for real leadership, as the majority work from an outdated playbook. We need a makeover, which means we need a vision that's bigger than what we've been told is possible. There is absolutely no reason you shouldn't be able to afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with some money left over. Families should have free childcare, Social Security should be expanded, and our inalienable rights shouldn't be dependent on who's in power. That means standing up to authoritarians, not shrinking away when the fight gets tough. And while current Democratic leadership might be fine cowering to Trump, I'm not. I've spent my entire career reporting on the far right and being attacked by them as a result. In fact, just a few months ago, Elon Musk's lawyers deposed me here in Chicago to ask about my mean tweets. Look, I thought comedy was legal again.
I love this woman. Let's get her into the United States Congress. This is something that we need is digital natives, these younger people who have grown up online, who understand the attention economy. This woman's been putting out videos for years, I understand, and I've checked a few of them. The video is awesome. The quality is awesome. She's the reason why I don't do video. like people like her are why I try to stay in my lane as an old 50-something guy from the radio, right? Just do audio stuff. Her videos are amazing, and her understanding of modern politics is exactly what we need at this point. But I thought to be fair, we ought to hear from her opponent, Jan Schakowsky, the 81-year-old woman who's currently representing that district.
Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and I'm here again with my plans and pans. I wish I could tell you that there was more good news. but we've had a very bad time here in Washington. And what happened, the first thing is that the Republicans passed a disastrous funding bill that will take money away from our families, from everyday people, so that Trump and Elon Musk can have the money that they want to fund tax cuts for the rich.
Okay, so I wake up, Russ. Oh, goodness gracious, putting me to sleep. Oh, so I wish you could see the video because the contrast is so dramatic. The congresswoman is just sitting in her office, just bad lighting. The jump edits you can see in the video are obviously covering verbal mistakes that she's made. Just sad in comparison to what Kat Abu-Ghazali has been putting out on her channel. So if you're in the Chicago area, North Chicago, Illinois North District, it's time to get behind her vision, because these are the kind of Democrats we need, the kind of people who are going to bring a fight, and the kind that understand the arena we're fighting in now is no longer the arena of, stump speeches and speeches in the House and raising funds from the donors and the interest groups. No, it's time to reach out to the people. And never before in human history have we had the ability to reach so many people for so little in expense with YouTube and the internet and podcasts. Everybody on the left here keeps saying, we need a Joe Rogan for the left. We need a Joe Rogan for the left. Well, here's an influencer. Here's someone on the left who's been putting out the content that gets people to click. And of course, the Democratic stalwarts, the leadership are like, oh, no, wait, not like that. They're all rallying now to back the 81-year-old incumbent. It's time for a change. Let's get behind this woman and get her elected in Illinois' 9th district. The big story this morning, I'm sure you've heard all about it, has to do with the stunning revelation by Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic about how Pete Hegseth, our DUI hire, the former Fox host and white Christian nationalist who's running the largest and most powerful military ever assembled in human history, managed to include on a Signal chat with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, a bunch of national security people on the line, a Signal chat where they were discussing the classified plans in great detail of how they were going to attack the Houthis in Yemen. First of all, a Signal chat. A Signal chat. If you don't know, Signal is an encrypted app. It's like using text messenger or Facebook Messenger or anything where you can send texts back and forth. You can make calls back and forth. You can set up group chats, but it's encrypted from end to end. So if it's picked up, intercepted, people can't, decrypt it and understand what it is, unless maybe you're the national security advisor. We have some tools for that. But anyway, they're using a Signal chat, which is not exactly a secure chat, right? Yeah, Signal itself might be encrypted, but the phones they're on aren't. And we don't know that the phones that are in possession of some of these people don't have key loggers on them or in other sorts of software that transmits their information to our enemies. Not that they need it, because apparently also on this chat line was Steve Witkoff, President Trump's Ukraine envoy and a known Russian asset. And according to flight logs, the timestamps are showing that he was in Russia at the time of these text messages going across. But her emails, right? Remember that? Hillary Clinton, 2016. Oh, she's doing email on an unencrypted server. We've got to open up an investigation right before the election on this unencrypted email server. Boy, that seems quaint now, doesn't it? We've got them discussing classified war plans with an Atlantic reporter. And God knows how lucky are we to have been Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic. Boy, we sure are lucky that he didn't accidentally include Tucker Carlson or Hugh Hewitt, somebody who would have happily been on those text messages and never revealed that he was accidentally a part of them. Hell, we're lucky it wasn't Maggie Haberman or Bob Woodward saving it for 2 years to put it in a book. Good on you, Jeffrey Goldberg, for coming out and actually telling the American people. You know, he wasn't even sure at first what was going on. He thought it was some sort of prank that was going on. Like, no way am I being added to some top secret war plans talk. How could that possibly be? But then once the bomb started falling and he compared it to what he saw in his notes there of, oh my God, this is exactly who they said they'd bomb, where they said they'd bomb, when they said they'd bomb. This is for real. So then he came out and let everyone know what was going on. Now, this has been confirmed. The Department of Defense confirmed it. The White House confirmed that, inadvertently led into this chat. But that didn't stop DUI hire Pete Hegseth from lying about it.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all.
Now, he was saying that nobody was texting war plans. He was out on the tarmac being asked about this after it had already been confirmed. It had already been confirmed that this guy was in there and they were texting war plans back and forth. And he is just out there brazenly lying to the reporters, asking him about it. It's just amazing. And not the only person brazenly lying about it. Let's, of course, go right to the source where journalists were trying to ask the Orange Cheeto Mussolini what he knew about what was going on.
Not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis? Right. Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it.
What a lie. What a liar indeed. That's the British commentator coming in there at the end of the clip. What a liar. What a liar. And I love that technique of Trump's. Whenever he's caught doing something that was bad. What? I don't know nothing about that. Who? They were asking about what? They were doing what? Gosh, I don't know a thing about that. I'm the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, but I'm absolutely clueless when it comes to who's talking about who's attacking who and how they're talking about it. I have no idea what's going on. I'm in charge. All right. So if that wasn't bad enough, it wasn't bad enough that we've got a major National Security Council scandal going on here. And of course, we can always play the game. What if Obama had done this? What if Biden had done this? What if Harris had done this, right? There'd be, screaming for impeachment at this point. But the Democrats, of course, not screaming for the impeachment of Trump, not even calling for the resignation of Pete Hegseth. I come across this story in the USA Today. Top national security Democrats demand answers on Pete Hegseth's leak of war plans. Oh, we just need some answers. Yeah, just tell us what you did. Y'all can stay in your jobs. Why? How could this have happened? Goodness gracious. What a silly mistake you've all made. According to the report here, they say, quote, "We are deeply troubled by the report in The Atlantic that you and other Trump administration officials conferred about highly sensitive national security matters, including precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing concerning military actions against the Houthis via the open source Signal messaging service." Okay. Yeah, this was written by Representative Adam Smith, who's a ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, Representative Gregory Meeks, who's a ranking member of Foreign Affairs, Representative Jim Himes, the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, and Representative Gerald Connolly, ranking member of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Jerry Connolly, sound familiar? Yeah, that's the guy that the Democrats put into leadership of that Oversight and Government Reform Committee instead of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, we got a sternly written letter. Woohoo, the Democrats have written a sternly written letter. Oh boy, get ready, folks. Yeah, the letter seeks answers from Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and Mike Waltz, the president's national security advisor. And Waltz, by the way, is the guy who put Jeffrey Goldberg in the text chain. He's the guy who added the number. Mike Waltz, President Donald Trump's national security advisor, who apparently hasn't told Trump anything about this. Nobody knows a dang thing. So there we go. A sternly written letter. When what should be happening right now from every Democratic politician who gets a microphone put in their face, a camera put in their face, every single one of them should be openly calling for Pete Hegseth to resign. This is a simple slam dunk here. You know, a lot of stuff when it comes to national security and high-level politics just flies kind of over the head of the average person. Committee this, chairperson that. They don't follow that kind of stuff. But that the Secretary of Defense and the National Security Council are all talking about war plans on just some app that any person can get off of the App Store and leaking it inadvertently to a journalist. This is something people can get their head around. This is a scandal they can understand. It shows incompetence. It shows a lack of the right hand knowing what the left hand is doing. It shows a brazen disregard for security. And you got to ask yourself, why would they use Signal? Why would they do that? Because, you know, when it comes to this top secret discussion stuff, we have facilities for that. We have SCIFs, secure compartmentalized information facilities, SCIFs. We have rules about what you can bring in there. You can't bring your cell phone into the SCIF. We have to discuss this all secure, classified. Why? Why would they avoid doing that and instead use Signal? Well, I'll tell you why. To avoid the record keeping. My belief is that they got involved in all this Signal stuff, and who knows how much more stuff is being conducted over Signal in this administration. But they're doing it to get out of record keeping. They're doing it to get out of freedom of information requests. They're doing it to keep everything secret from the American people, and who knows, maybe some war crimes trial in the future. That's what's going on here. The global backlash to the American descent into fascism continues. The latest story coming across from Wired magazine that's discussing how leaders in Europe are beginning to sour on the U.S. cloud giants. That would be cloud computing companies Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And for the same reason that they're souring on our U.S. defense contractors. And the Europeans are dramatically increasing their own domestic defense spending because they can't trust us. They can't trust us when we build an F-35 fighter plane that we won't put some kill switch in it so that if they try to use the plane against, say, Russia, that we make that plane a brick, make it inoperable. The same thing going for cloud computing here. Cloud computing where you store terabytes worth of data up there on the cloud on servers that are hosted by Google or Amazon or Microsoft. Same kind of fear here. Those are US-based companies, and Europeans are depending on them for critical security infrastructure, military needs. Who knows that an order from the president or a lawsuit or an injunction from one of our courts that are friendly to them causes those cloud services to be suspended for the Europeans. People are getting the feeling all across the world that you can't count on America, and who can blame them? Sure, elect Trump the first time. We can look past that. Yeah, everybody makes mistakes. Got caught up in a wave of populism. Hillary Clinton was unlikable, unpopular. Yeah, we can forgive that. But a second time, electing Donald Trump the second time, after he had committed the insurrection, after nobody bothered to arrest him directly after that, and then to go forth and elect him again? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Who can blame the Europeans for turning their backs on us? Who can blame our allies for turning their backs on us? And here's the thing. Once Pax Americana is gone, it's not coming back. We're over as the world's sole superpower. It's done. We're not going to get back a large proportion of those defense contracts. Once they start funding their own defense, building their own planes and tanks and guns and such, what do they need us for? Why would they go back to us? Once they start finding alternatives to our cloud computing infrastructure, why would they want to come back? We are losing for at least the rest of my life, and I'm 57. We're losing for at least the rest of my life America's place at the head of the world table. We are no longer the leaders of the free world. We're going to see the rise of increasingly strengthened Europe, an increasingly united Europe for their own good. They have no choice but to get along with each other now. In the face of the rise of China, the rise of Russian aggression continuing in Ukraine to this day, we are isolating ourselves on the world stage. Even our closest neighbors, Canada and Mexico, can't trust us anymore. Canada, keep threatening Canada of being the 51st state. Keep threatening tariffs against Mexico. Keep threatening to take back the Panama Canal, which I would think the rest of the world would see that as an act of aggression. That Panama Canal is depended on by all of the world for shipping across the North and South American continents and avoiding having to go all the way around. So you want to cut off that shipping route? You want to have the United States take it over and say, oh, China, you can't come through here anymore? Or you got to pay more to come through here anymore? How would that not be seen as an act of aggression against the rest of the world? Greenland. There's still the talk about Greenland. I read Usha Vance, the second lady, Vice President Vance's wife, was recently part of a delegation that flew over to Greenland. The Greenlandic people not very happy about that. They're seeing shades of what happened to Hawaii. What happened to Hawaii when we would send envoys over there, and the next thing they knew, they were being illegally annexed. Oh, you didn't know about that, did you? Yeah, you didn't know that we've been illegally occupying Hawaii since about 1898? Yeah, it's a fact. You can look up Hawaiian sovereignty if you want to learn more about that. I was taught that by a former intern of mine named Kaliko Castile. That yes, we should be giving Hawaii back to the Hawaiians and make DC the 50th state in its place. But that's time for another rant. We'll get to that in another show. It's going to take a long time for us to recover from this. And I think another thing that might be shocking the rest of the world is our lackadaisical response to all of this stuff going on. You know, I see the videos coming in from Budapest and from Georgia. I can't pronounce the name of that town in Georgia, the country of Georgia. But all throughout Europe, these protests where there's like millions in the street. There's like 1 million people in the street. Blocks and blocks and blocks of people. And then if they turn on the news here in America and they look at any of our major cities, they see, yeah, there's some protests maybe, but it's in the thousands, like single thousands, not even tens of thousands. And why is that? Well, again, because who's organizing the protest? Who's calling for the mobilization? Who's trying to excite the masses to show their displeasure? Well, sure ain't Chuck Schumer. I want to take a moment and walk you through a scenario. I want you to just imagine that you and your family are sitting at home on a Monday night. You've just had dinner, and there's a troublemaker in your town. This guy has been harassing you, harassing your neighbors, real jerk. And this night, this same guy who's been bothering you for weeks, months, comes over to your home and he's got the cops with him. And the cops start shooting up in the air, getting everyone's attention. And then your husband gets taken outside and beaten, ripped out of the home and beaten, screaming. You can hear his screams of, "I'm dying, I'm dying." Then the cops handcuff your husband, blindfold him, put him into a Jeep, and take him away. How'd you feel about that? How'd you feel about that if that guy, the jerk who'd been bugging you guys, and these cops over years and years and years have been attacking you and your family, the families near you, the families of your kids' friends, bulldozing down your home, destroying your farm, forcing you to leave? How'd you feel about that? Because that's what's going on every day in the West Bank in Israel. This is an actual story that happened to the director, the Oscar-winning director of the documentary film No Other Land. Israeli settlers beat up one of the Palestinian co-directors of that film on Monday. And it wasn't the cops, it was the Israeli military that detained him. They're being held at a medical base, incommunicado with family. One of the co-directors, the man's name, by the way, is Hamdan Balal, one of 3 Palestinians who were detained in the village of Susia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Basel Adra, another one of the co-directors, witnessed the detention and said 24 settlers, some of them in masks, some of them carrying guns, attacked the village. Soldiers kept their guns pointed at the people, while the settlers, the colonizers, the Israelis, were throwing stones, throwing rocks at the Palestinians. Adra told the Associated Press, quote, "We come back from the Oscars and every day since there has been an attack on us. This might be their revenge on us for making the movie. It feels like punishment." The movie No Other Land, of course, is a documentary about what's going on in the West Bank and the forcible displacement of the Palestinians living there. The film, of course, won the Oscar, won the Berlin International Film Festival in 2024. There's been over 100 settlements that have been built now in the West Bank, with over 500,000 settlers living there, versus the 3 million Palestinians who live there under open-ended Israeli military rule. This is, again, the move by Israel to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians out of the West Bank. They're doing the same thing in Gaza, doing everything they can to make a 2-state solution impossible, to give the Palestinians a place of their own to live, free from apartheid rule. There's been a surge in the attacks on the Palestinians. And of course, you know, the excuse that the Israelis will give you back is, well, these Palestinians, where they're throwing rocks at our soldiers. They're throwing rocks. They're being mean. What do you expect people to do? People got to live somewhere. And for generations now, the Israelis have been bulldozing homes and bulldozing olive orchards, destroying these people's livelihoods, killing, torturing, imprisoning children even. Of course, we look away. Israel's an ally. And really, what can we say? We forcibly displaced the Native American people. We genocided them. Birds of a feather flock together, I suppose. Time for our Boycott Idaho statement, why you should avoid the handmade state, and in particular, why you should boycott the Idaho potato. No red state is more singularly associated with one product than Idaho and the potato. They even brag about it on their license plates. So let's give this red state an economic hit and make it a warning to all the other red states to be a little nicer to their people. Maybe change some of your laws, make it so they can live in peace and harmony, and maybe we'll lift the boycott. Speaking of lifting the boycott, I talked yesterday about the Everyone is Welcome Day that was designated for yesterday with respect to that teacher who wouldn't take down the sign that says everyone is welcome and has the multiracial hands on it. They had their event yesterday, but I haven't gotten any new news on it, new reports on it this morning. So on tomorrow's show, I'm hoping to have some updates on how well it went, what the reactions were, and so forth. So for today's segment, I want to take a look at something somewhat adjacent to that when it comes to schools, and that is school libraries. Because there was a law that was passed in Idaho, House Bill 710, and it codifies the process that libraries have to follow when someone complains that a book might be inappropriate for minors. So, all right. You know my rule is anytime something comes across my desk that's, what about the children? My radar goes up. So this is, of course, one of those. What about the children? Here's the deal. In the state of Idaho, any adult or minor who thinks that a library item is harmful to minors can provide a written notice to the school or the public library asking for its relocation. So any person, anybody can go into the library, find a book, say, my two dads, say, my two dads, that's talking about gay. We can't have the kids know that gay exists. I'm going to complain. And so you write your little note that you complain about it. And if the item is deemed harmful to minors, I'm not exactly sure who determines this, but if it's determined harmful to minors, the library must relocate it to an adults-only section. Now, already, one of the unintended consequences, or I don't know, maybe intended consequences of this law has been the shuttering of the library in tiny Donnelly, Idaho. Donnelly, Idaho is just a little community just south of McCall, which is kind of a resort area. Nice Payette Lakes up there. It's beautiful. You got the Tamarack Ski Resort. It's wonderful. I give Idaho a lot of crap for its people in politics, but the land, oh man, it's beautiful up there. So Donnelly is this little town, and their library had to close because it's such a small library. They don't have another section. There's like not another room or place to make an adults only section. So they just closed the library. There you go. Now the minors won't see anything harmful. The minors won't see anything. And nobody will see anything because the Donnelly Library is closed. Now you might think, all right, Russ, well, what's the big deal? Right? So they wrote a bill. Anybody can come in and complain about a book. And then if it's deemed inappropriate, it can be put in an adults only section. What's your problem with that? Well, my problem with that is that the library, if they do not relocate that book in a specified time frame, the individual who complained about the book can sue the library and recover at least a minimum of $250. So basically what they've established here is a bad book bounty. Now Mrs. Grundy and all of the hard-ass religious folks can stroll into the library like, oh, there's $250 there, there's $250 there, there's $250 there, and start picking out books that they hope they can make their $250 on. Now, there has been a lawsuit over this. Took it to federal court. Some parents and some students and a couple of the libraries, a couple of schools, sued over this. Sued over it on First Amendment rights and 14th Amendment protections, equal protection under the law. But a federal judge on Tuesday denied the plaintiff's request to block its enforcement. and kicked a few of the plaintiffs off the case. The original plaintiffs were 4 parents and a couple kids, a couple libraries. They were kicked off of the case because, according to the judge, the court does not question the genuineness of the plaintiffs' concerns raised in their affidavits. Schools and public libraries are often pillars of our communities and formative in many of our lives. Regardless, plaintiffs have yet to show irreparable harm that justifies a preliminary injunction. HB 710 does not prohibit a child, parent, or legal guardian's conduct and does not contain any enforcement provision applicable to them. Rather, the statute only prohibits the conduct of schools and public libraries and only provides for the enforcement of a violation against schools and public libraries. So this is a little legal trick that they figured out in the wake of the decimation of Roe v. Wade. The little trick that Texas pioneered where they put up the abortion bounties. By making these civil actions and making them bounties and fines, there's no criminal conduct here and there's no sort of criminal punishment. And the parents and the kids aren't being punished in any way, so they just lose standing. They can't show to the court that this is actually harming them personally. Now, they did allow a couple of the libraries that are in there, that are public libraries, to remain a part of the suit. Because the public libraries might be able to show some harm that the enforcement of a bounty and the lure of $250 would make their operations untenable. So the case is still pending. The Attorney General of Idaho was pleased with the ruling. He said, quote, "I am pleased the court ruled the plaintiffs are unlikely to succeed on the merits of the case and are unlikely to prove that Idaho's law protecting minors from harmful material in schools and public libraries is somehow unconstitutional. While the case itself was not dismissed, we will continue to defend Idaho's law as this process continues." Now, the attorney representing the plaintiffs saw the glass as half full, saying, quote, "This ruling confirms that Idaho cannot censor books and materials long protected by the First Amendment under well-settled law, and we look forward to the next phase of the case." But let's get down to the brass tacks of what this is really about. It's not about censoring harmful material for minors, as if there's, pornography on the shelves at these libraries. It's all about the gay. It's all about making sure the kids don't see My Two Daddies or Heather Has Two Mommies, or that gay people exist, or that trans people exist. And I'm sure that they might find any books that say everyone is welcome here, that we welcome people of all races. Maybe those will be deemed harmful as well. This continued crusade to try to ban books that in many cases aren't even in the libraries. There was a great John Oliver episode a while back where he pointed out the Idaho town that was trying to ban this list of like 11 different books that they didn't want to have in the library. And they go and interview the librarian who says, we don't have any of those books. We've never had any of those books in the library. Banning books that aren't there, making adults-only libraries that can't be adults-only, so you just shut them down. That's how Idaho deals with knowledge and learning. Yet another reason to boycott the handmaid state. Are we on the verge of a Democratic Tea Party? That's the question I want to discuss here in the Radical Rant today as we continue to look at the cratering numbers for the Democratic Party. I pointed out yesterday how the approval rating for Democrats right now is at 27%, the all-time low figure for Democratic approval rating at 27%. And I found some more numbers digging into this on a Substack by G. Elliott Morris. And in this Substack, he puts together some great charts, some great data on this. First of all, just 40% of Democrats approve of the job performance of congressional Democrats. You ask Democrats about Democrats, only 40% approve of us right now, compared to 49% disapproval. 9 points underwater with their own voters. That's a dramatic change from this time last year when 75% of Democrats approved compared to 21% who disapproved. And this is getting Democrats into the territory that Republicans were in around 2013 when the Tea Party rose up. And then soon after that, 2015, Donald Trump rides in and completely takes over the party. We're at a -9 for the Democrats amongst their own party. Republicans amongst their own party are at about a plus 60 or 70, I guess. There's massive support amongst Republicans for their own party. The next thing that the Substacker takes a look at is who are the most popular politicians. Took a look at 3 months worth of polling on this and picked out a few of the names. And this is overall, not just asking Democrats or asking Republicans, but just overall, how popular are these politicians? And the number one most popular politician in this list is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has got a +7 favorability. 7 points more people like him than dislike him. It's 46% view him favorably, 39% view him unfavorably. Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in this list, followed by Alyssa Slotkin, who's at a +1, J.B. Pritzker, who's even at 0, the governor of Illinois, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming in at -3. Same with Pete Buttigieg comes in at -3. So a lot of that could be, the intense hatred for those two that you get on the Republican side. Regardless, Sanders, Slotkin, Pritzker, AOC, and Buttigieg all are more popular than Donald Trump, who sits at a -5, J.D. Vance, who sits at a -8, Elon Musk, who sits at a -12, and the Republican Party, who sits at a -12. So the people don't like them, and we've got popular politicians that are more well-liked. And it shows. Bernie and AOC are out there touring America, going to these red districts, expecting 3,000 people to show up, getting 23,000, getting 30,000 people to show up. J.B. Pritzker's been doing a great job on YouTube. I've been seeing a lot of his videos out lately where he speaks strongly against this Republican maladministration. But who shows up at the bottom of the list? The least popular politicians? Well, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, comes in at -15 in popularity. Chuck Schumer, leader of the Democrats in the Senate, comes in at -33. Ooh, -33. And the Democratic Party as a whole coming in at -35. So, what is it about the Democratic Party that is so resistant to populism, so resistant to what the people want, so resistant to seeing the obvious success of Bernie Sanders and AOC? Well, their resistance to it is because they are wed to the system. Bernie's message has always and consistently been about the system, the status quo that allows the millionaires and billionaires to dominate and continues to funnel all of the success and productivity in this country away from the working class people. A simple message of class and what politics could do to improve our lives. Not letters asking for questions, not subsidies around the edges to help make things a little more affordable. We got a terrible healthcare system with these insurers who are in the middle who determine whether we live or die. Here's an extra little bit of money to keep that system going. That's what we got with Obamacare. Not that I'm against Obamacare. Hell, I've got a total knee replacement thanks to Obamacare. not a dime I had to spend. Thank you very much for that, Barack Obama. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Luke Mayville and the people from Reclaim Idaho who got the Medicaid expansion passed in Idaho. I appreciate that. But it still leaves intact the medical system where health insurers stand between us and our doctors, determining whether or not what the doctor wants can be done. It's that neoliberal reaction to protect the status quo, protect the system as it is, but just try to help the people who can't quite make it in the system as it is, rather than remaking the system to help all the people. And this Democratic Party so wed to institutional norms and traditions is how we get this weak-ass octogenarian Democratic leadership. It's how we get Chuck Schumer in his 70s up there, Nancy Pelosi in her 80s up there, and Jan Schakowsky in her 80s. We had the chance to put Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in leadership position in the House Oversight Committee, the number one committee you need to ride herd on all of the malfeasance going on in the Trump maladministration. We could have put AOC there, someone the cameras can't resist, someone who could be on the news every night, someone who's a clear and effective communicator, someone that the young people will listen to, someone that will motivate someone to get to the polls next time. And we passed her up in favor of, let's see, check notes, Jerry Connolly, another 70-year-old guy. Jerry Connolly. That's the guy who's overseeing and making sure to communicate to the American people the terrible things Musk and Doge and the Trump maladministration are doing. Jerry freaking Connolly. And when we're desperate for a change, we're desperate to see this system reformed, a system of crony capitalism, where the rich and well-connected can always make it, can always get ahead, whose rights are portable, who never have to worry about Roe v. Wade or anything falling because they've got money, they'll be fine. In that scenario, you got Nancy Pelosi, one of the richest members of Congress, fighting against every effort to end congressional insider trading. It's shocking. It's still shocking to me that that's legal. That the people who write our laws and sit on the committees that determine government contracts and such are allowed to also trade stock in the very companies they regulate. And that the Democratic Party leadership won't stop that. Got to make her stock trades. And if you look at their stock portfolios, like Nancy Pelosi's and some of the others in Congress, and compare them to the average, mutual funds or the average, the market rates, they well overperform the market. Boy, they're just savvy traders, those Congress people. So how is anybody supposed to get motivated to vote for that party when the number one problem the people see is the system is broken and you want to keep the system broken? And this fecklessness from the Democratic Party, this refusal to stand up for principles, to actually believe in something. Like, are we the party that's against corruption? We're the anti-corruption party, aren't we? So what's up with Pelosi's stock trades? We're the anti-genocide party, right? We think genocide's bad, right? Unless it's Israel. You got to let Israel do whatever it wants to do. Gosh, Israel has a right to defend itself. They got attacked once, back on November, October 7th, a while back. And so after that one attack happened, they're allowed to attack continuously ever since then and completely decimate all the civilians living in a place where the terrorists came from. Are we the anti-genocide party? Are we the anti-poverty party? What kind of party are we? Other than the lesser evil than Republicans party. We're the pro-war, pro-corruption, pro-graft party, but with rainbows, but with diversity, with pronouns. And this is having a direct electoral effect. I've been listening to a couple of pundits on this who've crunched some of the numbers and understand that in 2030, we have another census and there'll be another reapportionment of the U.S. Congress. You know, we only have 435 reps. That's been capped. It doesn't need to be. It should be uncapped, but we've got to play in the rules we've got right now. The House is capped at 435, but the population keeps growing and moving to different states. And so you have to reorganize who gets which representatives, how many of them. And I think it was Ezra Klein. I think it's Ezra Klein that was pointing this out, who pointed out that in the next census, California and New York and Illinois are going to lose Congress people. Oh, and Oregon, too, was one of them. We're going to lose a congressional seat or two or three in some of those bigger states because people are moving out of those blue states. And they are moving to red states like Texas and Idaho, which are going to gain representative seats. So, by 2030, winning the House of Representatives gets harder for the Democrats. There will be fewer blue states, or the blue states will have smaller representation, I should say. And the Electoral College is based on how many representatives you have plus 2 for your 2 senators, right? So California, New York, Illinois, Oregon, these blue states are going to lose electoral votes. And places like Texas and Florida and Idaho are going to gain electoral votes, which means, according to the analysis that I heard from Ezra Klein, that if the next Democrat who ran for office after 2030 won all the states Kamala Harris won and won the 3 blue wall states that Kamala Harris lost, that is, if she had won Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, even with all of those wins, the Republican would win the Electoral College. That is to say, the shift out of the blue states has been so dramatic that the blue wall won't be enough anymore for a Democrat to win the White House. Yeah, that's where we're getting here. And when it comes to your Democratic Party brand, which again, I tell you is 35 points underwater, part of what makes that brand a little more difficult to support is when people are fleeing the states that brand governs. Democrats have a supermajority status in places like California and Oregon, and yet people are fleeing Portland and LA, San Francisco, for lots of reasons. One major reason is lack of affordable housing. Haven't got any place for people to be able to live. And then that, of course, leading to a homeless situation, a homelessness crisis, which, to be honest, is why I left Portland. My lady love and I lived in Portland. I loved living in Portland. I moved there in 2003. Absolutely loved it. We opened up a bed and breakfast in a Southeast Portland neighborhood in 2017. By 2019, that neighborhood had become so overrun with people sleeping in their cars, homeless encampment tents, garbage, needles, feces on the sidewalk, in the gutters. Our guests, when they'd park their cars in the driveway, would get their cars ransacked. We had to close the business and move. It got that bad. So you can't blame people when they look at a place like California and they see no place to live, cost of living's out of control, homeless all over the place. And then they go someplace like Dallas where that's not happening. You can see why they'd sour on the Democratic brand. Democrats have to show that they can govern the places they control before the people are going to trust them to govern the entire country. And to me, it all comes back to that defense of the system. In California, for example, the regulations are so onerous that it can take years to try to do a simple upgrade on your house, to install solar panels, to do something simple. It takes years and years, and inspection after inspection and regulation after regulation. California's been trying to build high-speed rail since 2008. They started feasibility studies in 2012. By 2024, they're almost done with the studies. That's just crazy. Yes, we have to have regulations and rules to protect the environment, to protect labor. But man, it just seems like that's far too much regulation. Regulation needs to be smart and needs to be funded. We can't have any more of these unfunded mandates. We have a situation like in the state of Oregon, where the drug warriors, my old nemesis Kevin Sabet has a new group out there, International Drug something, I forget what it's called. But they're crowing. They are just over the moon about Oregon trying and failing drug decriminalization. We try to measure 119 that decriminalized the personal possession of most drugs. You know, like you could have a personal amount of meth, personal amount of heroin, right? You can't be dealing, can't be openly using in public, but it was just to decriminalize the personal possession. And it was a disaster. And I voted for it. I'm all for drug decriminalization in principle, because what a person does to themselves, absent harm to no one, is nobody's business and not a crime. The catch there is the absent harm to no one part. Because with Measure 119, we kind of had an unfunded mandate here. We kind of decriminalized the use, but didn't legalize anything else around it, right? Okay, you're legal to have meth and heroin, but where are you supposed to use it? You can't use it in a bar. There's no place to go to use it. So people were using it on the street. People were using it outside if they had no home. And okay, so now you're legal to have that heroin and you're addicted to it. So you got to have it every day. You got to get some heroin every day. So where do you get that heroin? Well, there's no heroin store. There's no pharmacy that's issuing your clean heroin. So you had to get it off the street, and that led to open air drug dealing. So the failure of Measure 119 isn't the failure of the concept of drug decriminalization. It was the failure to provide all the supports that you need around it. A place to access drugs, a place to use drugs, and a way to get off of drugs. That was part of 119 too, was, okay, well, if we catch you with drugs, it'll just be a fine, but then you can avoid the fine if you get into some treatment. But then we don't have any treatment available. Or we can't afford the treatment that is available. Or there's just not enough beds. So it was bound to fail because it didn't have the supports behind it to make it succeed. You can't have legal drugs, but no legal way to use them. No access to get off of them. So they're crowing about this, how drug decriminalization failed. And then it makes it look again like the Democratic Party, the Democrats who put this together, didn't follow through, didn't think about it, didn't have public safety in mind, and were just trying to endanger the people with their misplaced empathy over drug users. So we have to make our blue states better if we expect people to get behind the Democratic Party. And we can't expect people to get behind the Democratic Party being led by septuagenarians and octogenarians who are completely out of touch with the world we live in today. That's why we need the young people who are the digital natives, who understand the attention economy, who make accusations rather than ask questions. Adam Schiff, Senator Adam Schiff from California, he was on the social media the other day too with the Pete Hegseth thing. Pete Hegseth has a lot of questions to answer about. No, make accusations. Call out the enemy. Say the Department of Defense was irresponsible, was insecure. Pete Hegseth is over his head. He's unqualified. He should resign now. Make statements. All this asking questions from Democrats, again, portrays weakness. Gosh, you did something wrong. We sure would like to know. Why won't you tell us why you did something wrong? Oh my God. I will be here every day trying to come up with ways to get more people excited to support the Democratic Party, but I can't do that unless the Democratic Party is committed to major change, to changing the system, to changing its leadership, and to believe in something.
And it goes down smooth. Hey!
Well, folks, that's all the time we've got for today. Thanks for joining us on what is now the #1 ranked podcast among my parents. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Appreciate that. The Radical Rush Show is produced, directed, researched, written, recited, posted, and catered by me, Radical Russ Belville, and governed by Creative Commons Share-alike licensing. My main theme is We Love the Herb by Herbal Nation, and interstitial music is by freestockmusic.com and by VTEMO, courtesy of freetouse.com/music. You can contact me by email, and please do. I'd love to hear from you. Maybe I'll read an email on the air. Contact me by email at radicalruss@gmail.com or call and leave a voice message at my message line, 877-RUSS-420. That's 877-877-420. And reach me on social media on Blue Sky as radicalruss.com and nowhere else. You can support this podcast financially by donating to @RadicalRuss on Venmo, RadRuss on Cash App, or by PayPal on my website at radicalruss.com. Get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, my website, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rented Lips. And tell a friend. Thanks for listening. And until next time, take care of each other.